Well, there's an effort now to have Texans vote on whether they want to secede from the United States, and it's starting to gain support. Now, I just want to go back, and I know people say, you can't secede from the Union, you can't break away. I'm sorry. That's the Supreme Court, and I know the Civil War settled it. Did it? Did it really? The Constitution and the Union, the vote to get into it, is not a suicide pact. It's not. If it's killing freedom, if I may quote, governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms which they are accustomed. That's what's happening now with us with COVID. You know, we know that it's tyranny. We know that it's bad. We know that they don't really have a right to do this. But what are we going to do about it? Is that a light and transient cause? Well, if we wanted to say we're going to get out because of that, or I want to get out because of the vote, that's a light and transient cause. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. But see, here's the point that I think we all need to look at, and that is, what's the long train of abuses and usurpations? Because in the Declaration of Independence, there's tons of them, and they're really, really, really bad. Because, if I may go to the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind require that we should declare the causes that impel us to that separation. So we have to be very clear on the causes. So what are those causes? Because I don't think there's much disagreement. Well, there will be from the left now. If Donald Trump would have been in office, they would have been making this case. But you have a harder time when you say, I want a different country, because the Declaration of Independence says it's over a long train of abuses and usurpations, and you're losing the freedom that this government. So if the government is tyrannical, then you have the right to be able to get out. You don't have the right unless you're living under tyranny. You have the right and the duty if you're living under tyranny, and not some made-up tyranny. Not like, slavery 150 years ago. No, what's happening today? What's happening to you right now? COVID is a good example, but it's one. But is COVID a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object? Or are these abuses going down the road, the same road, pursuing the same object, total control over people? With the Great Reset and everything else that's going on, I think you could make a case. Do we have him on yet? Oh, we do? Okay. We have Kyle Biedermann on. Kyle is a state rep from Texas, and he's proposing a bill to allow Texas to vote on secession. Welcome, Kyle. How are you?
Well, Glenn, thank you very much for letting me be on. And I don't know how much more I could say than what you've already said this morning. And I really appreciate you going right back to the actual words of our founding fathers. Because what's happening, the negatives I'm getting, which are very few, come back to the fact that I don't love America. Well, you listen to every word you've said, Glenn. We love America, and that's why we need to do something about these abuses.
Yeah, they are dismissing the things that made America America. That's the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But let me give you the words from the Texas Constitution. All political power is inherent in the people. All free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their benefit. The faith of the people of Texas stands pledged to the preservation of a republican form of government, and subject to this limitation only, they have at all times the inalienable right to alter, reform, or abolish their government in such a manner as they may think expedient. Does that mean the government of the state or the government they've aligned themselves with?
Well, that is so true. And with Texas, as well as every state, the Constitution does not deny us the ability to leave. A lot of people say that says that. But again, the Constitution has the powers that are not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by it to the states, are preserved to the states respectively, or the people.
Right.
The people is the real key word, Glenn. The people are the ones that can rise up and call out their government for the abuses, and call out their government for the grievances that they are entitled to make known. And we have so many grievances, and the people's voice is what's not been heard.
So
that's what needs to be heard right now.
So the real question is the grievances. Do they? I mean, let me go back to the Declaration of Independence. Governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. If you read the Declaration of Independence, the things the king was doing to people is much more than what's happening to us now. So what are those reasons, and do they rise to the level of get out? We're not going to be a part of this.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the biggest problem is. The states have not, they've given up their authority and the power that the Constitution has given them. So it's really the states' fault that allowed us to be in the position that we're in. But some of the grievances would be our First Amendment rights. We've got a Bill of Rights that has been trampled on by this federal government. And so we've got our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights, of course, free speech, religious freedom, the 10th Amendment, of course, which is all about states' rights. Mm-hmm. All these things are inherent rights that have been given to us that no one can take. So they're very similar to what England did to the colonists, back in the Revolutionary time. So I would say that the grievances are major, especially when it comes to the regulation, the forming of agencies and taking over health care and everything else that has been done by the federal government that is not their authority. But the states are the problem. They've given it to them.
So if this were just a vote, I would vote for it. But if this were a vote, I think I'd have to really listen to the whole argument. If this were like Brexit, I would vote for it because it doesn't mean war. This will not be taken. I mean, you're just not going to secede. And, living in Texas and knowing Texans, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, stop them. But nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And when you compare it to Brexit, that's exactly what this is. It is, okay, what do we do to get their attention? What do we do to get the discussion going, not just against the federal government grievances, but grievances with our own state? So we give the people a voice, we let them vote, and then if they vote yes, then the government needs to listen to the people, and the discussion begins. It could take years. And we don't know where all that's going to go.
So
but
this
right
isn't
now,
this is not a pick up your guns. This is an answer when people say, okay, so we've tried everything. What next? This is let's get their attention by all standing together and saying, we're not going to be a part of this very much longer.
That's exactly right. That is exactly it. That's all the bill says. And even if the legislature allows me to bring this bill through the legislature, have the discussion is not post what's going to happen after the people vote yes, if they decide to vote yes for this ability to reassert their status as an independent nation. Now, after that, the bill will also delineate. Now is when committees need to be formed, the Texas legislature, federal government. Now we start the discussion on all those other things. But if we don't get that discussion going, then we're never going to be able to talk about these issues that are happening in our state and in our country. And other states are watching us, and they want to follow us. And Texas needs to lead on this issue.
So, Kyle, does this bill say that we are seceding or that we have the right to secede?
This bill just says that we have the right to reassert our status. If the bill passes, we don't leave. All that does is now we start the process of the discussion, forcing the legislature, the governments of Texas and the federal government to actually start talking about it. And, of course, with the other states. So a lot of people get worried that we're going to be seceding if we vote yes. No, we're not going to be seceding if we vote yes.
Okay.
It's beginning of a process.
All right. And have you seen any poll numbers on this? Do you think this would pass?
Well, when you look at the poll numbers that have been happening for the last 5 years, it is trending upwards very much. And we do have polls where we have the majority of Texans that are in favor of this. But when I'm looking right now, since I put out my announcement about a week ago, the response has been tremendous. It's been from all over the world, I'm telling you, Glenn, but it's been tremendous. And again, the people that are worried in a way of the things that you just said. We want to be careful that this doesn't cause a civil war. Well, that's not what this is about. They're worried that, the next day we vote and then we're seceding. No, that's not the case. There's too much to go through. And we have a great example with Brexit. Brexit, the people voted, then it took 4 years for the legislature. And that was just getting out of the European Union.
Right. So this is really just putting some chips down on our side of the table. You know, you're not listening to us, so we're going to just lay a few more chips down on the table. Maybe that will get your attention.
That's exactly what it is.
That's a good idea.
Again, this is Texas, and you know Texas.
Oh, I know.
You go right back to the Alamo. You go right back to the spirit of Texas, and that spirit is inside Texas. They just have allowed it to get too far, they have not really acted as they should.
With the rate,
this is going to wake people up.
With the rate of people moving into this state, I am very concerned about that spirit because Texans are, I've always felt, are born kind of feeling that, but it seems to be changing. It's not gone. I think it's still the majority, but it's moving in another direction fast, and we could become California fast.